Well, good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ormond Beach, a welcoming community of compassion and acceptance. I am Reverend Kathy Ricky, and I invite you to our virtual worship service this morning. The in-person discussion group and worship services usually held in our beautiful building pictured has been suspended until further notice due to COVID. We will continue to hold discussion group at 9:15 a.m. and worship at 10:30 a.m. every Sunday via Zoom until it is safe to hold large group functions in our building again. If you are joining us for the first time this morning, we extend a special welcome to you. We invite you to stay on the Zoom meeting after the service concludes, when many of us enjoy a bit of conversation with each other. We would enjoy meeting you if you're new and would like to introduce yourself. We also invite you to see our website at uu.ormond.org and look for the welcome button under my picture. There you will find how to get further connected with our congregation and learn more about Unitarian Universalism. And now for a couple of announcements for the good of our community. There are two adult learning opportunities coming up this month, and the first is presented by Lifelong Learning on November 11th from 4 p.m. to 5:30, when yours truly will be presenting a follow-up to the early developments in Christianity. I'll be talking specifically about the doctrine of the Trinity and the Council of Nicaea, and determining that doctrine. The Zoom link can be found in the weekly e-news and on the website. And then also on Thursday, November 19th at 7 p.m., Dr. Rob Whiting of the African American Cultural Society will complete his series on African spirituality with his presentation, Herodotus and Europe. Contact Reinhold Schleiper for the Zoom link. A very interesting series of talks. Please know that our building remains closed to most activities while we're finishing up the final stages of renovation, putting things back, getting things cleaned up. If you must be in the building or you've been asked to be in the building for a certain task, remember that a mask is required. Please practice social distancing and know that a hand sanitizing dispenser is located in the kitchen. Keep your hands and surfaces clean. So I would like now to introduce my dear brother, Philip Sudam. He is he's retired from the Air Force, where he served as a major. He served 20 years, and with tours in Germany, Guam, United Arab Emirates, and Iraq. He has a bachelor's in criminal justice and a master's in industrial organizational psychology from Louisiana Tech. He is in his 15th year teaching junior ROTC, and the last 11 have been at Jefferson High School in Carneysville, West Virginia. And finally, and another important fact about Philip Sudam is that he is my favorite brother. So I hope you will welcome with enthusiasm my brother Philip speaking on the issues unique to today's young veterans of the service. Just a reminder that in the absence of a physical passing of the offering basket, we invite you to make any smaller donations in honor of our virtual worship service or in financial support of the congregation through our PayPal donation button on our website. For larger donations or pledge payments, please send your checks to Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ormond Beach, UUCOB, at the address noted.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
At the sound of the singing bowl, our service begins. For those of you who may not have been able to see the screen, that was an arrangement of our hymn, We Would Be One, performed by Janet Strumpus. Our call to worship this morning, the words of Albert Camus, translated by Justin O'Brien. Great ideas, it has been said, come into the world as gently as doves. Perhaps then, if we listen attentively, we shall hear amid the uproar of empires and nations a faint flutter of wings, the gentle stirring of life and hope. Some will say that this hope lies in a nation, others in a human being. I believe rather that it is awakened, revived, nourished by millions of solitary individuals whose deeds and works every day negate frontiers and the crudest implications of history. As a result, there shines forth fleetingly the ever-threatened truth that each and every person, on the foundation of their own suffering and joys, builds for them all. Our chalice lighting this morning, I invite you to light a chalice at home if you have one. I light this chalice, a single flame, which I hope kindles many hearts this morning. Let this flame invite us into virtual community and remind us of each other's presence as we worship from many singular rooms. Let this flame inspire in us faith and courage to face these difficult times. Let this flame be our guide in making sense of a chaotic world, and let its light show us the way to beloved community, both near and far. And if you would like to recite along at home our congregational covenant. Love is the spirit of our congregation, and service is our aim, to dwell together in peace and freedom, to seek the truth, and to help one another. These are our goals. This morning I have two joys. First, Madison Webb is home once again and continuing to recover from her snake bite. She's being treated by a wound care specialist. Cards and letters to the home are appreciated. I spoke with Jan Turnent yesterday. She continues to recover at home after a bad fall she had several months ago. Her husband, Bill, is a wonderful caregiver. She's in good spirits and wishes to thank everyone for all the cards, calls, and messages of support when she was in rehab and since she's been home. And for all the joys and concerns which remain silently on our hearts this morning, will you pray with me? Spirit of life and love, bless us this day with the understanding that joy and woe are woven fine, that whosoever brings us tears also brings us great joy, that the hours before dawn are often the darkest. Spirit of life and love, bestow upon us the peace which passes our understanding, so that hope, faith, and love may fill our hearts and still our worrying minds. Spirit of life and love, in this difficult time, bid us to strive for our best selves each day. Let our striving be for justice, equity, and compassion in our human relations. Inspire us to create beloved community in ever-widening circles. Spirit of life and love, we give thanks for this precious day and for all that is our life, for we know that our life is a gift freely given, unbidden, and unearned. We give joyous praise for this, our one precious life. Amen. And if you would like to sing along with Spirit of Life, you're welcome to do so. Please mute first because Zoom will not pick up all the voices or the music at the same time. And now I give you my brother, Philip Allen Sudam, the challenges and opportunities for today's young veterans.
Thank you, Kathy. Good morning. I should probably clarify at least one thing before we get started here. I am Kathy's only brother, so I am both her favorite and least favorite brother. And I earned the latter distinction probably growing up quite a few times. It's really an honor to be able to speak to you this morning. I appreciate the invitation to do so. This idea started last year before Veterans Day. Kathy and I were having some conversations. Both of our fathers were veterans, and we were talking about the need for veterans to be connected to their communities, be it through church, be it through organizations, be it through their work life, and the importance of that feeling of connectedness and what that does for someone. At the time, she was like, well, you should come talk to our church. You should, and I'm like, I'm not flying down to Florida right now. Of course, none of us had the miracle of Zoom a year ago, and now it's like we never lived without it. But she did ask if I would come back this year, and so for better or for worse, I've had a year to think about the things that I wanted to share with you this morning. I will speak to you this morning having been informed by, I guess, the two most significant professional experiences in my life. First of all, having served as an airman in the United States Air Force, and then secondly, as an educator for the past 15 years, teaching high school junior ROTC. I think both of them have given me a pretty fair foundation to lay out for what I see are some challenges for our young veterans. And conversely, when there's a challenge, there's opportunities. And so I think that, whenever we look at a problem, there's also solutions available. There's hope that lies in those opportunities. And I think that all good people from all walks of life can be involved in kind of implementing those solutions. I would preface this by telling you that the vast majority of our veterans are leading happy, productive, fulfilled lives. So I don't intend to suggest to you in any way that this is a problem of epidemic proportions, but instead there is a segment of our veteran population that could use the help and the support that their communities and organizations within their communities can provide them. And so those are the veterans that I would focus on mostly this morning. It is said that a veteran is a person who at some point in their life wrote a blank check made out to the United States of America for an amount up to and including their life. Where do they come from? They come from rural, small areas. They come from the inner cities. They come from virtually every walk of life to serve in our armed forces. They come seeking opportunities to not only to serve their country, but they're looking for the opportunities that military service provides them, such as educational benefits and the ladders that help them escape their previous lives. Many of them come from disadvantaged backgrounds. In my own experience, I was 17 years old. I was a junior in high school. I kind of understood that I was pretty much done with school, or at least I thought I was. And I enlisted in the United States Air Force after my junior year of high school. And I waited around, and 2 weeks after I graduated, I was off into the United States Air Force. And for me, that provided me a place to do some growing up, to understand the value of an education, and it provided a lot of the structure I needed to go on and have a successful life. And I think that it does that for a lot of our young folks. The average age of somebody who enlists in the armed forces is around 20 years old. And I think that's a fairly significant number. And I say that because having been in education for the last 15 years and having dealt with kids of that age, you learn that, our neuroscientists have decided that our brains are not fully formed until we're about 25 years old. And, there's some old parenting anecdotes about, you'll like your kids a lot better once they reach about 25 years old. So I think that it's significant when you think about the fact that these young people are entering a critically important segment of our society, and they're not yet fully developed in that prefrontal cortex and all of their decision making. And they can be subjected to a great many things as a result of their military service. You should also consider that according to the Department of Defense, 51% of our enlisted force are under the age of 25 years old. And if you aren't familiar with all of the military jargon, the enlisted folks are the ones who go out there and do the real work. They do the fighting, they do the dying, they keep things moving. And so these are the people that we're counting on when we deploy, when we go to places like Iraq, when we go to places like Afghanistan. And so they are the ones who are going to be subjected to a great deal of the trauma that can be associated with military service. Many of them will complete a 4-year term of enlistment and leave the military before they've even reached the age of 25 years old. So I do think it's significant that you keep those things in mind. I mentioned trauma a little bit. It can come in many forms and fashions for our veterans. For many, it obviously can come in the form of their combat experience, losing friends, seeing people wounded, coping with loss. For others, there have been significant traumatic brain injuries and other injuries. Even before they reach a combat zone, they can deal with trauma. I would suggest that if you've ever watched a young person getting off the bus at Parris Island, South Carolina, to start their journey in the United States Marine Corps, that's a fairly traumatic experience if you've ever watched that. So there are many types of trauma that can go on, and even in training, even for our young people who never reach a deployed area, a combat zone, injuries occur in training, accidents occur in training, the loss of friends can occur even in the training environment. So it's important to keep that in mind. And I would also say that we invest a great deal of time up front training our young people to perform a particular task. It takes months and months between their basic training or boot camp experience and then the advanced training that teaches them their particular skill set. And yet on the other end of it, it's a couple weeks of mostly administrative duties as they are ushered out the door. So it's difficult sometimes to understand, how do we get these young people deprogrammed and ready to re-enter our society? For a lot of our young folks too, you have to understand that the military is almost a family environment. I tell my young kids in high school that I talk to that while they're in high school, with the exception of maybe joining the military, this is one of the last places in your life that you're going to have this many adults who are actually concerned about you as an individual. When you go out into that world of work, people are a lot less concerned with you as an individual as opposed to what you can provide. But in the military, I think we foster a great family environment. And our veterans wake up each and every morning in the military filled with a sense of mission, a sense of pride, and a sense of purpose. They're surrounded by caring leaders and their fellow soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. When they leave the military, that support network dissolves pretty rapidly, and you've left that behind. And they're left struggling with some significant issues such as substance abuse, post-traumatic stress, and other mental health conditions. I would share with you the story of a friend of mine that I went to church with years ago. As it turned out, we both ended up deploying to Iraq around the same time. Now, he was a gunnery sergeant with 17 years of experience in the United States Marine Corps. This guy was a Marine's Marine. He had been trained. He was on the razor's edge, and he was everything that you would pick out of central casting that a United States Marine is. He deployed to Iraq 2 different times with his unit, and he came home an absolutely changed and frankly fairly broken man. And so we think of it sometimes that it's just the young kids, but there are also some older people who have had all of that training, all of that experience, all of that preparation, and even they come home very changed people who are having a lot of difficulty coping with their lives back here. The latest estimate is that approximately 20 veterans a day take their own lives. And that is an absolutely disturbing thought. Others are homeless. Others are dealing with some very significant issues. And it is hard to explain that feeling. When you leave your family behind, when you leave that military family behind, it is hard to explain how it feels when you are back out here in the civilian world. In the course of what I do now, I'm out in the community a lot, and veterans will come up and talk to me, and they'll share their experiences with me. And it's funny, to a person, you know, there are many of them that they don't miss the grind of being in the military. They don't miss that at all. But they will tell you, boy, I sure do miss the people. I sure do miss my brothers and sisters. And some of them will tell you candidly, the biggest mistake I ever made was when I got out. They understand that they had something there. It was a very special place to be, to spend a part of their lives. Their service members, fellow service members, help to kind of support and guide them. And there's a void when they leave the service that is difficult to fill. Transitioning back into civilian life can be very challenging for young veterans, even for older veterans. If you consider the fact that for the young people, their service in the military is their only adult experience in their lives. We talk differently. We use different language. We joke about things that most folks don't understand, but there's a gallows humor that goes along with some of the things that you're asked to see and do that we use, and frankly, it's a defense mechanism. So they're different. And this is where they have been formed as young adults. Keep in mind, too, that at any given moment, less than 1% of our American population serves on active duty. So there are not as many veterans out there as you might actually think that there are. The military does a great job of giving folks some world-class training in a lot of occupations. And some of those occupations are easily transferable when you go back out into the civilian world. And for those young folks, they're probably some of the ones that I referenced earlier who are leading these happy and productive lives. I would offer up to you, though, that when you look at the bulk of our folks who maybe join the Army and the Marines, they are trained in the combat arms. And those services and those skills are not as transferable to the civilian world. So it makes it difficult for some of them. I see some advertisements on TV, some of these Fortune 500 companies that say that we're committed to hiring 10,000 veterans. Well, I would add the caveat that they want 10,000 qualified veterans. If you've got a lot of skills in information technology or another related field that they need, I am absolutely certain they're committed to hiring you. But I'm not certain how it works out for some of the young people whose skills are not as easily transferable to the outside world. Having said that, I do believe there's reason for hope and optimism, since there are many good people just like you who have the best of intentions and who have good hearts and are willing to help. You can do that by supporting any of a multitude of veteran service organizations. I did a quick Google search in Ormond Beach, and my goodness, there are veteran service organizations at the federal level, the state level, the county level. There are nonprofits, and many of them could use people to help, to volunteer, or even just to help guide some of these young veterans to some of these places that can help them navigate what's available to them. Because as I said, when you're going out the door, they don't spend as much time with you as when you're coming in the door. So for a lot of veterans, they don't even know what's available to them out there. I would also say that there are new organizations that are popping up. I think our crowd here, we're very familiar with the Veterans of Foreign Wars and the American Legion, the American Veterans, fine organizations. But they have a different model. And folks of, frankly, my generation and younger are not joining the way that our parents did. And a lot of these, if you go through small towns and even some larger places, you will see a lot of these posts that have shut down. They've got a lot of infrastructure and they frankly just can't maintain it due to dwindling membership. They're being replaced with some great veterans organizations, but they are more about activities, fellowship, some therapy sometimes. But what they may not provide is some of that advocacy, because the American Legion, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, they are still very powerful advocates for our veterans. So there's a balance there that's going on. And I think it does present a challenge and an opportunity for us. I also say that if you can pull veterans in to your church, to your organization, who are you going to have? You're going to have somebody who understands hard work, who understands sacrifice, who is looking for a sense of mission, looking for some fulfillment and purpose. And I think that organizations that are able to capitalize on that find themselves in win-win situations. The veteran benefits, the organization benefits by it. And I think that they can be a significant contributor to any community or to any organization once they have been engaged in that. I'd like to close out by leaving you with a quote, and this is from Maria Cuomo Cole in an editorial that she wrote, pointing out that tens of thousands of our veterans are homeless. And she wrote that homeless and at-risk veterans need more than just shelter. We must give them the tools to empower themselves and reclaim the self-worth and dignity which comes from occupying a place in the American dream. It is a dream they fought so hard to defend for the rest of us. I believe that begins with each of us individually. And I believe that together we can make a difference to honor our veterans in tangible ways that foster real change in their lives. I want to thank you once again for the opportunity to talk to you this morning, and God bless America.
Thank you, my brother. Awesome. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that thinks that. At this time, I would like to, as is been our custom, to honor those who served in the military in our congregation. Now, you don't have had to have seen active combat duty in order to be on this list. As my brother said, you sign up and you give your life to the military for 2 or 4 or 20 or more years. And no matter what you do or what you did in that capacity, it was part of supporting the whole. And we honor you for taking that or for giving of yourself and for serving the rest of us in this country. Kirtland Davies, Phil Elliott, Stephen Estabrooks, Chris Gruner, Tom Hilburn, Dan Kennedy, Dan Kerr, John King, Russell Gray, Bruce Nelson, Bob Palmer, Paul Pritchard, Peter Remington, Bill Turnent, Roy Webb, Harry White, and John Sandberg. And if there is anybody whom I have left off the list, please say your name now.
Dan Grubin.
Dan, thank you. And in celebration of your service to us, a selection from our choir, You Raise Me Up. Nice performance, choir. Thank you so much. And now our chalice extinguishing. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our benediction, the words of Darcy Roque. There is too much hardship in this world not to find joy every day. There is too much injustice in this world not right the balance every day. There is too much pain in this world to not heal every day. Each of us ministers to a weary world. Let us go forth now and do that which calls us to make this world more loving, more compassionate, and more filled with the grace of divine presence every day. And our postlude, America the Beautiful, performed by Janet Strumpus and recorded by Felix Fernandez. Once again, everybody, if you would join me in thanking my brother, Phil, for being here.